The following is a paid program and does not necessarily reflect the views of WSIC.
And welcome to Putting the Pieces Back Together, brought to you by Purple Heart Homes. We are your hosts, Leah Gutierrez and Devil Dog Devin.
Hoorah!
I'm so glad I don't have headphones on. Poor Joe.
Yeah, poor Joe. I wonder if does he turn down the headphone right before I do that? He doesn't. No. He's shaking his head no.
You're a glutton for punishment.
Oh yeah, but when the audience is listening to this, whether it's the radio or on YouTube, by the way, if you're not following us on Purple Heart Homes YouTube page, please you gotta. You can see us in person, but. He's gonna go into a Dolby Audition and make everything sound even. And you're like, what is he talking about? That guy's not any louder than anybody else. I assure you, I am. Joe is just a wizard when it comes to that audio stuff.
He's very smart.
Yeah,
just leave it to Joe.
We should give him a gold star.
Speaking of gold stars.
Oh yeah, that's right. Our guest today is a gold star mom.
Yes.
And for those of you who do not know what a Gold Star mother is, a Gold Star family is someone who has lost their child in combat. So when we get to talk to a Gold Star mother, it's very special because frankly, we don't want any of those to be out there, but unfortunately, when you're sending young men and women out into battle, that's what happens sometimes. So we give an extra special thanks to them. And Susan, thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely.
So hey, you're Susan McClintock.
McClamrock.
I'm so glad I'm not the one that butchers her name.
I have gotten I think I had went 9 guests in a row without messing up a name.
Sorry, I called it Deafy by the wrong name.
Oh my gosh, McClamrock.
Cody.
Got it.
Wow. Well, Susan, thank you for being here. So you're not just a Gold Star mom. You're also the Gold Star liaison for Tribute to the Troops. Is that right?
That's right. That's correct.
Man, I got that part right.
You got it right.
Well,
how long have you been with them?
About 2012. And in the last couple years, we've brought on another Gold Star liaison. So we share the responsibilities. She is also a Gold Star mother, Roseanne. And so she is taking a higher load right now. And I've lessened mine, but I'm still on the board trying to make sure we get to all the families.
What do you do as far as your position?
So as a Gold Star liaison, we reach out to people in our community, our state, and then since Tribute to the Troops has now expanded and now we have territories, if you will, we've been to Virginia, we're looking at Tennessee and those surrounding states. And what we do is we locate or identify, unfortunately, families who have suffered a loss. And the one thing that we try to be mindful of is not all men or women die in combat. Right. Our son was killed in action. So we're pretty much clear-cut Gold Star family if you were looking at some of the definitions. But then I know my son, on September 7th, 2010, when he got up to go and do what he was supposed to, he didn't think he was going to die that way that day. And neither do some of your other, what we consider Gold Star, whether they were in a car accident or some kind of training accident on the field. I mean, it could be anything. It doesn't have to be just combat. So we try, and those are the families that are harder to locate.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Because if you have someone who has possibly died through, like they're 22, they have taken their own life, you don't get a parade for that. There isn't anything to identify that you struggled with the war at home. So we try to find everyone, whether you died from burn issues or something post-traumatic that happened, but is still connected to your military service. We also identify those and reach out because oftentimes those families have had zero coverage, zero thank you, zero anything, and they're just sitting there so sad and depressed.
That's something you really don't think about.
No, and when you deploy, they take a picture of you. I mean, you have this whole bio that is on hand, but when you're active duty, you don't have they have to go through the process of finding out who your family is, and sometimes you get isolated on some of these bases, or
The isolation's a big problem, especially with folks that are active duty and are suffering from PTSD. And I appreciate you mentioning that someone that took their own life would be considered a Gold Star family, because, I mean, they're doing that because they're struggling with the issues. You're constantly in trauma in the military. I mean, they call it trauma bonding. They intentionally induce that upon you. I don't know if that's the right word, but
I think that's what we termed it when you relate to like the dark humor and the friendships. We're all bonded by trauma.
Right. Well, the one thing that what we tried to do, and what I try to do when I seek these families out, is not to dissect death. Because so many people, today on the way home from here, if I died, I didn't choose to die that way.
Right.
So there are several things that we're not going to draw the line and say yes, no, because that's hurtful to the families whose child was killed in a training accident, or they went out to get a milkshake and they were in a single vehicle accident. I mean, this has happened to so many. I can probably name more Gold Star families who have lost their child through an incident that's not related to combat than I can, KIAs. Wow,
that's amazing. And I think I did it at the start of the show. I said a soldier, sailor, young man, woman that lost their life in combat, but that isn't necessarily how that happens.
Right.
The training accident, I know folks who've been lost in training accidents. The military trains to a standard that is much different than what the civilian world. OSHA and all of those things come into play, and sometimes you have to suspend those rules because you have to train for conditions where those rules wouldn't exist. And so when you do that, there's an element of danger, and unfortunately there's casualties.
Exactly. And that's why we don't dissect death. We're there for the family, and whether it's the mom and dad or the brother and sister who are oftentimes forgotten about, because that trauma, if you think about the relationships and how they're established, a brother and sister will remain usually their friendship for 80 to 90 years, where a parent, you may have 50 years at the most, because you're a little bit older when you have them. So a lot of times the brothers and sisters are never focused on, and then they have that heavy, guilt, whatever it might be, just trauma in their life, and it's very hard for them to work through that.
Wow. Yeah, that's tremendous. You actually have me speechless here, because this is a really hard subject, but it's an important subject.
Is there a way for people to reach out to you? Like, how would they? You say you go find them. Is there a way for them to come?
Usually it's word of mouth. If someone else, like if we're at a particular, either at a Gold Star presentation, or if Rocky Lynn has a concert and he touches on the Gold Star families, usually someone will come up and say, "Hey, I had a cousin who lost their daughter," and I'm like, "Hey, give me the information," and then we go from there.
And when you mention Rocky Lynn, he's one of the co-founders of Tribute to the Troops.
Yes,
and the spokesperson.
Yes. He is amazing, because when the first time he came to us, when we met him, he came to let us know that they missed James and all this good stuff. So I met him, and the one thing that he does better than anyone is he made it sound as if James was standing right there, like he was congratulating him.
Wow, that's just amazing. And
love it.
We want to hear more of your story, but unfortunately, we got to go to a break right now. Somebody's got to pay for the show, keep the lights on, and pay for Joe's Dolby software so he can make it sound good. You've been listening to Putting the Pieces Back Together.
And welcome back to Putting the Pieces Back Together. You are with Leah Gutierrez and Devil Dog Devin.
Were you counting?
I did. I was like 5, 4, 3, and go.
Yeah. You don't, you can count to yourself. It's like silent.
I have the best conversations. Myself and I have the best conversations.
Most people don't do that out loud.
Like sometimes, even to this day, like to get to a letter, I sing through the alphabet to get to that letter. I can't be the only one that's still like A, B, C, D.
I mean,
Okay.
I
Thanks,
do
Joe.
that too.
Thank you.
But I'm a Marine, and we're not known for being very
No.
bright. So I don't want to say about you. So anyway,
There's like certain words still I remember, like Tom is Tom or row, how to spell island and island.
what?
Dessert is 2 S's because you always want more. To learn like things that my teachers taught over the years to remember how to spell stuff.
You know what I want more of? I want more of our guest story.
There you go.
Susan McClamrock. I said it right this time, right?
You got
Yes.
it.
I did. All right. Awesome. Well, Susan, we heard a little bit about Tribute for the Troops and what your role is there, but we didn't hear much about you. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I was born and raised in Florida, which is a great place to be. And I was born to my mom and dad, and my mom was younger. My dad had already fulfilled his Navy career. And so she was 19, he was 32.
Oh, wow.
He was 100% disabled and unfortunately was unable to live with us. He actually lived out at Bay Pines Hospital in St. Petersburg.
Kidding.
That is the Veterans Hospital there. He was not allowed to live with us because he had extremely bad PTSD. And so I got to see him, though, often. We would go out to the hospital and go fishing because it was on the water and go to the canteen. That was always fun, getting donuts. So my mom made it as normal as possible. And then when I was 10 years old, I was actually home. It was January 20th, and I was home from school with pneumonia, and I heard my mom scream from the kitchen because she had gotten a phone call saying they had found my father and he was deceased at age 44.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So, the first time I actually heard taps was when I was I just turned 11 the same week because I was 10 when he died and 11 when we buried him. And he had a military funeral and everything that you could expect. But I can just remember sitting there going, what in the world has just happened? Because it was very overwhelming. But then I heard taps again, and that was at our son's funeral. And I realized I've heard that before.
Oh my.
And it took me back to being an 11-year-old child burying her father. So after my dad died, back then the VA benefits were then chopped down to almost nothing.
Right.
Because the main guy died. And so they didn't have as many programs. They certainly didn't have Gold Star children programs or anything like that.
Right.
But thankfully made it through school and then met the love of my life in college and been married 40 years.
Wow.
6 kids.
Yeah, my God.
Yeah,
accomplishment.
fixing to have the 4th grandchild in 2 months. So my life has gotten a lot better.
Congratulations. Wow. Fourth grandchild, huh?
Yep, 4th grandchild.
Your kids like ever say you treat the grandbabies better than you did when they were growing up?
Oh, they know. They know I do. I said, I'm getting rewarded because I didn't kill you.
Yeah.
So
it was like one day my oldest was like, Grandma is so cool. And I was like, well, I guess my mom's better than your mom, huh?
yeah.
Wow.
Like, because they're like, Mom, you're so mean. I'm like, I know.
That's an
I
interesting take on that.
Well, I get annoyed with my mom. I'm like, no, my kids cannot have Smarties right before bed. I'm like, you didn't give me Smarties, but I love grandkids.
Well, that's because she's trying to torture you.
Yeah,
I would
think
try
that
to
is.
torture you too, I think. If,
But yeah, but kids are fun.
But so you said something there. You're talking about your father suffering from PTSD, and so you have a really unique experience where you both saw in your childhood the effects that war can have on a family,
Absolutely.
and as an adult in a different capacity.
Yes. So I can remember one time, I was probably about 8 years old, and my dad had a day pass to come and visit us. And on that day, he ended up flipping out, and my mom put us in a room, shut the door, and said, do not look out the window. Well, don't tell me not to do something because I'm going to do it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I looked out the window, and I can still remember my dad in a white straitjacket getting into an ambulance. And I thought, why did you ever look out that window?
Yeah.
But so, yes, I lived with that trauma, I guess you could say. I didn't have the normal vacations kids went on because my dad, of course, really couldn't leave the hospital but for a few hours at a time. And but you know what? My family made up for that. I had a great childhood. I had a very loving family. And we just knew that my dad, who went through World War II and Korean conflict. Just had suffered a lot. He was in the water for several days with not a good situation going on around him. And so when I was older and could really truly get a grasp of what he did and how much he suffered doing that, then I understood that actually death for him was a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
And that's one of those things it's hard to grasp. When people are truly suffering, sometimes that it feels like that maybe can be the only release. But and I think far too many of our soldiers and sailors and Marines that come back, that they feel like that's the only release, and many of them, most of them, can receive help and get to a place where they feel comfortable in their own skin again if they just have the right support element around them. And back then, they didn't know what to do about that.
No, when my dad actually tried to commit suicide and he did not make it, he lived through several suicide attempts, and the psychiatrist at the VA, with my mother present, just looked at my dad and said, "Billy, you're such a loser, you can't even kill yourself."
Oh my gosh.
Oh, wow.
Exactly.
Wow,
That's how callous they were.
Oh, that's just horrendous.
I don't think they knew how, like she said, they didn't know how to handle them.
And
Because it's almost like, come on, snap out of it. It's probably the mentality that they had. It was like, quit acting this way.
And so I just want to say right now for anybody who is listening or watching this, if you need help with those types of thoughts, there are so many programs out there now, especially if you're a veteran, but even if you're not, reach out. I guarantee you, if you look it up on the internet, immediately there's going to come up with a suicide hotline, those sort of things, and they can help you find those programs. So please don't sit in yourself in misery. Reach out to someone. Just tell someone you care about, and find that help. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, absolutely. That's a great reminder. But anyway, after my father died and everything, we went on with life and adjusted, and it was different. But then I married this wonderful man that I found in college and love of my life. And then we had this great family. And
6 kids.
6 kids, 2 and 11 months, the first 2.
Oh my gosh.
John and James.
Wow. The Irish twins.
Irish twins.
I think you said that, didn't you?
Yep.
Oh, man.
So James actually graduated from South Iredell. So we were.
Go Vikings.
Yep, go Vikings.
I'm an alumni.
Yep.
Oh,
and he went to school there, so did John. And so we have great memories of living in this area and watching him grow up as a great young man. And he was loved, and he was funny, and he loved the underdog. That's the thing that we found true about him before military and after military, when the guys that we got to know told us what a great guy he truly was.
Oh, that's awesome. Have those memories and stories of his life where you weren't, around, and the buddies to talk about him. That's really cool. I'm sure there was probably stories you probably didn't need to hear.
Oh, yeah, probably stories you'll never hear.
Oh, yeah. Well, I know. They actually told us some, and I'm like, I won't repeat those. Yeah.
Oh, come on. We'll edit them out. It's fine.
Yeah, I know, right? But it was cool when you were talking about, when we were talking a few moments ago about the suicides and the guys who struggle when they come home. So my nickname to his battle buddies was Mama McBattle. That's my name. So when they write me, they'll go, "Hey, Mama McBattle, how are you?"
Oh, nice.
And one particular one, I needed a liver transplant because after James's death, the trauma hit my body, and so it developed into an issue that I had. And he was like, "I was the guy that I feel responsible for this whole incident." And he said, "I want to come there and I'll take my life, but I want them to know right before I do it, I'll call them and say, this liver goes to you." And I said, "There's no way you're doing that." And I said, "For whatever reason, you're still here and James isn't." And I said, "James would be so ticked off at you for even thinking that way." And now, thankfully, after a lot of conversations and just a lot of time praying for him and just really worried about him, he became a firefighter and is thriving and is married and a father. How great is that?
Oh,
That
nice.
is amazing.
Yeah.
That's That's a really great story.
It
there,
is.
right? To come from feeling that way and to now having a family and thriving.
And have a purpose again.
Well,
yeah.
And that's what the show's all about. It's called Putting the Pieces Back Together, because it's, how do you do that after coming out of the military?
Mm-hmm.
And it looks differently for everyone, but some people are truly struggling, and it sounds like James's friend was. And I'm glad that you were able to be there for him.
No, it was my just privilege, and I just wanted him to know, you made it. You're still here. Don't blow this.
Yeah.
Pick up the pieces.
Yeah.
I'll be here. You can talk to me anytime. You got our attention, and we want to see good things come from you.
Wow. That's
I'll be here. You can talk to me anytime. You got our attention, and we want to see good things come from you.
Wow. That's a really powerful story. We've only got a few moments here before the break. But you had mentioned something in there. You talked about how the trauma changed in your body and how this is common with Gold Star families. And I think we're going to hit up on that when we come back. If you want to hear more about that, come back. Listen after we come back from the break. Just click back in. Watch it. Just keep watching.
Welcome back to Putting the Pieces Back Together. That's all I got, Devin.
Are you going to lick the microphone? Sniffing it. What was that Molly Shannon used to like stick her hands in her armpits?
When I get nervous, I put my hands in my armpits and I...
Yeah. It's so terrible.
Superstar.
Oh, man. Wow. You were something else.
I know.
I can't believe you were actually who I requested to be on here with me.
Did you?
And I'm really
glad?
regretting that decision.
I think you laughed more in the past 10 episodes than you have in a long time, right?
But probably. Yeah. And if you've missed any of those 10 episodes, you can go back and find them on YouTube on Purple Heart Holmes channel there. But also you can find them on our website, phhusa.org, where we've got even some of the episodes embedded. You can just click right on it and it'll pop up, and you don't have to go anywhere else. And while you're there, if you want to help out veterans with housing needs, we got a big donate button where we're helping veterans every single day. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Safety, health, and accessibility. If it falls under one of those three pillars, that's what we're helping with housing needs. And so if you want to change the life of a veteran, go there, click that button, or click the volunteer button. Get involved with the way that fits you best. But for now, we're going to get back to our guest.
Yes.
Who is that?
Susan McClamrock. Did I get it right?
That's it.
Oh,
You were dreading saying the last name, weren't you?
I'm horrible with names. How many names have I?
Susan, she could not say her own last name after she got married, and I had to say it for her. Gutierrez.
Yes. I can't roll my R, so.
So I'm always teasing her about that.
That's fine.
Yeah.
But before the break, we were talking a little bit about how people process trauma, and what's something that's very common in Gold Star mothers especially is that they start coming up with physical ailments that they didn't have before.
That is the truth. And basically, I was healthy. I was working out every day. Mother of six. I'd work all day, go to the gym, go home, and do all the things. And I had a liver condition, which was called PSC, primary sclerosing cholangitis, which basically says your bile ducts are blocked. And it's something that my doctor said it probably will not bother you until you're 75 or 80. So we'll just keep a watch on it. So here I am, 49, when James is killed. And within 3 months, I'm sick, so sick. And I go back and they run all my levels, and I'm starting to get to the point of liver failure. And that's when I ended up going to Mayo Clinic for a month and having everything completed. And then I was at CMC Maine off and on from 2013 till January 9th of 2016, where I received a liver transplant.
Oh my gosh. Yep. So they actually had to remove your liver. It was so bad. And,
yep.
And that's something that will continue to have effects for the rest of your life, right?
Oh, absolutely. And, the only way they could explain it is the trauma. Like my body, I thought I was actually doing really good. I went back to work. I was doing things for soldiers. I was working with tribute. I was processing all this information, being positive, raising, the other 5 of our children that were still at home, thinking, okay, I've got a grasp on this. Faith is very important in my life. So that was an important factor. And then, like I said, I just got sick and sicker. And it was just because my body just took that trauma and it attacked me. And that is one thing I will tell new moms that enter into this.
Yeah.
Take care of yourself. If you see something change, whatever it is, get to a doctor. And I have watched several of them pass away due to all kind of things. I mean, they didn't have cancer, then they had cancer. They didn't have a disease, and then they have a disease. And it's just, I think, the stress and the trauma brings it on.
Especially for mothers and probably fathers as well. But you're not supposed to see your children pass before you.
There's not even a word for that.
No,
you lose your spouse, you're either a widow or widower, but you lose your child, what are you? You're lost. And that's about it.
That's powerful. I can't imagine what that feels like. During the break, you were starting to tell us a story that I made you stop because
it was such a good story.
No, you got to tell that on the air. And do you feel comfortable sharing that with us now? You're talking about something in Hawaii.
Yep. So James was stationed out of Schofield Barracks in Hawaii. A great, beautiful place to be. Unfortunately, the first time we saw it was when we went for his memorial service on the month that he was killed. They brought us over so we could actually have a funeral, if you will. It was beautiful. They had bagpipes and it was open air chapel. It was it's what we needed to see the military truly be there. Everyone dressed, everyone respectful to say we lost that day also. And so after the funeral, we went over to a type of light dinner or lunch.
Right.
And we were able to really talk to more of his friends and just people there that were recuperating. And we had several, I would say about 6 soldiers sitting at one table who had injuries where it required for them to come home to heal instead of stay on the field. And Mark and I wanted to talk to them because we felt it very important to say, we care about you and we're so glad you made it. What we had happened to us was done. We could not go back. We couldn't change the past, but we felt like we could thank the men who went through the same incident. And as we approached them, we noticed all their heads were down. They would not look up at us. And my husband, being the type of man he is with his training, he got down on his knee and he looked up at them and said, we're James's parents and we're here and we want to thank you because we know that what you went through is not what you planned either.
Yeah.
Wow.
And we want to be your friend and we want you to know that you're here for a reason and we want to see you thrive after this. And those men have become like children to us.
Yeah.
They sent me Mother's Day flowers my first year. How many people think about that?
Oh,
wow, that's amazing.
I know. And it was from the guys because they knew that would be a very hard first Mother's Day for me.
right.
And they wanted to remind me, you are special, and I could feel that. And it just made James's death to know that his brothers, because one thing James said is, he said, Mom, my biggest goal in going when I get to be with these men is finding a group of men that I know would die for me and that I know I would die for them.
Right.
And I had never thought about it that way.
Absolutely.
And when he got to Hawaii, right before they shipped out to go to Iraq, I said, did you find that group of men? And he said, absolutely. So I knew that those men that day that held him on the battlefield as he died, he was okay. And matter of fact, the weird thing was, and what the guys told me, not right away, 4 years after his death, one of the guys called me and said, I've got something to tell you. And he said, we've kind of held it to ourselves, but I think you should know. And I'm like, okay, what is that? And he said, James died with a smile on his face.
Oh my.
And I went, I said, do you know why? And they said, no, but we thought you should know. And I said, well, I believe it's because of his faith that when he died, he saw who was there for him. And he's like, I'm good.
Yeah.
I said, he was fine, guys. Take that from that. Take that smile and know he's okay. It was. And the chaplain then, after the day of the funeral, the chaplain wrote us and just said, I want you to know that after you all spent time with the men, he said, none of them had opened up. They had not talked to any of the officers or the chaplain or anyone. And they said after that, their healing began because they were able to speak about the event. Is that amazing or what?
That is amazing. And that's powerful.
Yes.
So, I mean, honestly, you got me tearing up over here.
Well, I don't think a lot of people realize the survivor's guilt behind it.
Absolutely. When you lose someone like that why not me?
Yeah.
Why them? Why not me? And that's
happens to a lot of us.
It's often something PTSD folks are struggling with.
Yeah.
Why were they special? But I can really appreciate the fact that you took that time to speak with them. I'm sure that made a great impact on their lives. Hey, we've only got a few moments left. We're getting ready to go to break. If you missed any part of this broadcast, go check us out on YouTube. You've been listening to Putting the Pieces Back Together.
Welcome back to Putting the Pieces Back Together, brought to you by Purple Heart Homes.
Are you closing your eyes now and trying to remember your lines? It's the same line every time. The same line.
Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. How hard is it to say welcome back?
Well, and then sometimes you go, and
you are listening to Putting the Pieces Back Together.
I mean, I'll get a cue card. Joe, can you get that cue card? And yeah, he says, yeah.
You told me I cannot read.
I didn't say you can't read. I said you turn into a robot when you start reading.
I do.
Yeah, you kind of do.
I know.
But you have a naturally pleasant smile and you're kind of fun to be around.
Thank you.
And then you start and when you start reading, you just turn into, there's no smile. There's your face. You're like the Terminator come back to take us all on. Was that Terminator 3 when we had the female Terminator and she beat up Arnold?
I didn't watch anything after the first one.
Oh, wow.
I was just like, yeah.
You didn't watch T2?
No.
Oh, that's his best one. Man, I always love the sequel. No, that's not true. No. Anyways.
I digress.
We should get back to our guest. We bantered enough now. So, Susan, you were telling us a powerful story right before break. And oh my gosh. Yeah, it's...
You're a jerker.
I think that I'm just so caught up in how you've had this relationship with the folks that were with James during that time and that were in his unit, and how they've kind of become children in their own right for you. How has having that relationship with them helped you with your trauma over the years?
So the first thing that we did, James was killed in September and Christmas is coming. So we wanted to do something to connect with them, if you will. And the one thing that they all knew about us is my husband's a minister. We're Christians. We live our life accordingly. So we bought each one of his friends, which was about 45 of them. I don't know whether you call them a unit, a battalion. I don't know what that is.
Platoon,
Platoon, whatever group they were with. And we wrote the chaplain an email and said, hey, what do you think if we sent them the Soldier's Bible, the green one? And how would that be? And he said, well, we have people of different faiths, and I can appreciate that, of course. So he said, let me check with them. And even those that are atheists or belong to another type of religion said we would love it. He said he did not expect that. So we bought the Soldier's Bible, and on the inside we wrote James's story and some of his favorite verses in a bit of information from us to them about how much we love them, and we'll be thinking and praying for them as they go. And then we sent them also candy and a whole little bag of goodies, and we mailed that out to them that year. And that was really healing for us. it also told them that we really care about them. And we actually had one father come and said, I have tried forever to do that very same thing. He said, I've actually seen my son pick up a Bible because of you. And I'm like, that's what we wanted to do, was bring peace. And we feel like that's one thing that can help, is having that faith in Christ. So that was one of the things. And then we've been to their weddings, and and because they said James would have been in my party if, because a lot of them were single. James was married to Shayna, and Shayna is now married to someone else, because at 23 and you're a widow.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
Well, the first thing I told her, it's kind of crazy, but we went to Dover to receive James's body, and we were sitting there talking. Of course, we're waiting and waiting because things don't always go on time. And I just looked at her and I said, Shayna, you are no longer my daughter-in-law. And she looked at me like, what? I said, now you're just my daughter.
Yeah.
And I said, I say that to you because you need to live a life.
Yeah.
I said, don't let James's death in the beauty in your life. I said, I'm going to be thinking and praying that you will find a man that can love you as much as James did, because he loved her so much.
Yeah.
And that she's married and has a child now. And I'm very thankful that she was able to move forward and not get stuck in thinking that at 23 years old, there was nothing else for her.
That's so easy to do when we lose someone that young. And that just goes to show, I mean, you're talking about what you experienced. He had a wife, his father, 5 siblings, all those lives touched.
Yeah. And I think that when you have such a strong faith, you kind of find your purpose through tragedy. And so it's like, you have a tragic event happen, but then you find purpose in it. And I think for you, the way that you have handled his passing and become compassionate towards others instead of withdrawing into yourself and being, why my son? Why did this happen? Like, you're exuding that compassion and that love you have to go, it's okay. And, and spread that out to everyone that may not get that kind of. And I think that's your purpose.
Well, I just finished studying the book of Job. I can tell you the night the soldiers came to our house, first of all, I was not very nice to them. They come walking in and they first say the wrong name. They say the parents of John McClamrock. Well, guess what? We are the parents of John McClamrock, but he doesn't wear an Army uniform. He wears a TSA uniform. Oh. And matter of fact, he was coming in the door at the same time. And my husband said, do you mean James McClamrock? And they looked back down the paperwork and they said, yes, I'm sorry, it is James. And when they came in, I had just gone to bed. And what was so strange was that night in the breaking news said 11 had been shot, 2 killed in Iraq. Man. And I didn't know, I knew James was in Iraq, but I didn't know where. So, of course, I wasn't thinking it would be us, because out of 150,000 men,
what are the odds?
What are the odds? So I told my husband, of course, being believers, I said, we need to pray for these 2 families because their life is going to change. I went into my room and got into my bed, and not 15 minutes later, my husband says, Susan, come. And I grabbed my robe thinking, what in the world? You've never even been like that. And I walk out and here are these men at our door. And I first said, how do you know it was my son? And I said, because there's a lot of men over there. And he goes, ma'am, we've checked the DNA. And I just was like,
oh my.
And then my son, who was 11 at the time and was born on James's birthday, so they shared the same birthday.
Oh, my gosh.
He looked at me with a scrunched up, just tearful face, and he said, I'll never have another birthday.
Oh.
And I said, we celebrate birth, not death.
Right.
We will have a birthday every year. And that particular year, people in the community, and I got on Facebook, and they all sent him cards. He got like 80 birthday cards. That's how important.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That just shows how the community can come together for you.
That's the human love that you don't always see.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you were talking about gosh, I kind of lost my place for a second. I got teared up there, man. You have made me cry twice on this show. That's a record. But I think you've done that by telling powerful stories that everyone needs to hear. I mean, when there's that sacrifice, it's not just one person that's sacrificing; it's an entire community.
It is. Well, when I said I had just finished studying Job that year, I had taken a whole year. If you read through his story, his life, you'll see a lot of parallels in suffering and the way he handled it. And so I'm out on my front porch. I mean, we can't sleep, obviously. We're just calling family all over because they said they were going to break the news in the morning. And I wanted to be able to tell my family before they read it on Facebook or something else, a radio show or AP Press or whatever. So I'm standing out on the front porch and I just look up at the sky and I said, why us, Lord? And he just said, why not? And I'm like, you're right. I'm not thinking the right way because I believe that all your ways are true and good and that nothing happens without your hand and there's always good in it. And I said, I know you'll show me the good, but right now I'm broken.
Right.
And I don't know what to do. And slowly the pieces came back together, but it has to be a conscious decision for you to move forward.
In a process. I mean, you got to be able to go through the process.
You have to mourn. Yeah. You have to be angry. The day after his funeral here in the States, I just got in my car and I went to the grave and there was no one out there. No one. And I just screamed, why?
Yeah.
As loud as I could because I needed that release. And after that, I never did it again. I told one Gold Star mother, she goes, you really did that? And I said, yeah. She goes, I might need to try that. And I'm like, hey, it worked for me. I said, I needed to mourn out loud. I was trying to be strong as a wife and strong as a mother. I had all these siblings and, you know, you have to be able to try to meet all the needs and yet meet your own. And you don't know what you're doing because it's the first time.
Right.
No one tells you how to mourn a child and one that was killed so viciously.
Absolutely.
You know? Yeah. So,
and you went from that morning to, you just mentioned the graveside before the show though. You mentioned something else that you did at the graveside not too long ago.
So because Harrison and James share the same birthday, every year we do something funny. We always eat at Logan's, number one, because that was James's favorite restaurant. And James was such a character. He would walk around and ask people how their food was that night. Like he worked there.
He was the manager.
But that's just the way he was. He was funny. And so we go there and they always make our nachos. But before we go to eat, we always go to the cemetery and we take flowers and balloons. And our balloons sometimes are really funny. Like this particular year, just in the fall, we did Get Well Soon. Feel better and smiley faces and finally a happy birthday in there. And if you don't understand that, then you don't have a humor elective. Right. Okay. And unfortunately, some of our grief is dark. And where we can say that, if somebody else made fun of my son for dying, I would be very angry at them.
Oh, absolutely.
But I can say that and I can laugh at that.
It's a way of grieving.
It is.
Through a little bit of levity that helps us through.
Exactly.
Well, Susan, we're coming up on the end of our time. You've been an absolutely wonderful guest.
Are we already done?
Yeah, it went by so fast because you were such a great guest. Thank you for being here.
Well, it's a great story. It's of a wonderful young man who gave his life for his country.
Well, thank you so much. Hey, we'll catch you next time on Putting the Pieces Back Together.
Bye.